All right, everybody, what's going on? How y'all doing? And welcome to today's edition of Swag Talk, the show we cover the swag inside and out. Of course, I am your tour guide around the swag. See what else coming at you. And it is the time that we all been waiting for. This is the creme de la creme, the brawl for it all, whatever you want to call it, the clash for the one spot, man. Winner take all Celebration Bowl. Winner will be HBCU national champ. South Carolina State Bulldogs against the Jackson State Tigers. MEAC champ against SWAC champ. Number one team in the MEAC against number one team in the SWAC. This is what the game was created for, and this is what this game is. So we're going to talk about both teams, and I'm going to give my thoughts at the end on how I think this game is going to go. This is our final football preview of the 2024 season. Um, it's been a blast doing these for y'all, man. I appreciate everybody for rocking with me through the whole season. And we'll be back on Sunday to recap this game and talk about everything that happened. And we also have our 12 team season recaps taking place throughout the this month and next month. And we'll also have National Signing Day in February. Any huge portal type of stuff that come up during that time, coaching searches, Legacy Bowl, and then spring football. In April, in April and May. So we're gonna have football going the whole time, but we're also gonna sprinkle in some basketball because, like I said, I love swag basketball. So we're gonna do that, and I'll probably have a basketball quote unquote preview um, next week to kind of get you up to date on what's going on in swag men's basketball and kind of give an idea what to expect when conference play starts in January. So we got a full slate of stuff. So don't go nowhere. Don't think because this the last game of the season that ain't gonna be no swag talk if you haven't been around. We cover stuff all season. We sprinkle in baseball, softball when we get around there, track and field, whatever. We're gonna cover all of that from here and now. So don't go away. We got a lot coming at you, and we also got swag smoke coming on Thursday, live 6 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Eastern, and that's gonna be running throughout January, February, March, April, May, June, July. So we got a lot going on. It's not gonna stop around here. Also, don't forget to hit those socials where I have the link for our final pick'em of the season, which is obviously Celebration Bowl pick'em. So keep it. If you want to get down on that, you can catch the link on my Twitter, which is Swag Talk 76, or my Instagram and Facebook, which are both Swag Talk, or you can find a link in the description of this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment your thoughts on this game. How you think this game gonna go, who you think gonna win, and what you expect. And don't forget to hit that notification bell to be alerted for any time videos drop. I typically drop Wednesday, Thursday, Sunday, but I do also drop videos on other days. So if you don't want to miss a video that's dropped on a non-scheduled day, then you can catch it there by hitting the notification bell. So let's go ahead and get into this, man. This is, like I said, a Celebration Bowl. Um, Atlanta, Georgia is the site. Bulldogs versus Tigers. These two teams played last season in Atlanta in the MEAC SWAC Challenge, but these both of these teams are different teams than that point last season. So this is like a brand new game for both teams. This is a game kickoff at 11 o'clock on Saturday. So ABC. So make sure y'all lock in and catch it. And this is what we all been waiting for. This is what we all wanted, and we got it. Both teams playing extremely well coming into this game. Both teams are on winning streaks. South Carolina State, they've won 8 in a row coming off of since they lost to Georgia Southern on September 14th. And we're gonna talk about the Bulldogs first, kind of give you an idea of what this opponent is, because we talk JSU the whole season, but we're gonna talk a lot of JSU here. But we're gonna lead off with the opponent, with the ops. So we'll start off with South Carolina State, and this team finished the season at 9-2, 5-0 in conference. They only have 6 teams in the MEAC, so 5 conference games. They won all 5 of them. They're on an 8-game winning streak. Like I said, they 5-0 at home, 4-2 on the road. This game will be their first neutral site game of the season. They opened up the season with a SWAC opponent, and they lost to Florida A&M 22-18. Then they beat the Citadel for the first win of the season, 23-20. They lost to Georgia Southern 42-14. That's an FBS game. And then they went on this run. They opened up that 8 game winning streak, beat North Carolina A&T 45-25. Then they beat Tennessee Tech 22-20. They beat Fort Valley State 30-3. They beat Delaware State 69-35. They beat North Carolina Central in the game that pretty much determined the MEAC. They beat them 24-21. They followed that up with a 38-14 victory over Howard, then a 54-7 victory over Morgan State, and they closed out their season against Norfolk State with a 53-21 victory, and that gave them a 5-0 conference record, put them in the Celebration Bowl, and so this is their second Celebration Bowl appearance since 2021. And so they are, they're flying pretty high. New coach, well, not new now, but new coach at the beginning of the season. Chennis Berry came in, brought a lot of guys with him from Benedict. Went back and got his guy Eric Phoenix, quarterback who was the QB for him at Benedict, was at Morehead State. Wasn't really playing much. Brought him here. Offense took off, and so we'll kind of look at this team a little bit. They had 17 guys make the all conference, make the all MEAC list. Uh, the offensive lineman of the year was Nick Teisty. I know I'm butchering his name. Um, he was the offensive lineman of the year. Coach Barrett was named the coach of the year as well. Uh, their guys who made offense first team, Eric Phoenix. Like I said, he's a quarterback. He's grad transfer. Caden High and Justin Smith Brown are both wide receivers. They both made first team all conference. Keyshawn Toney made first team offense at tight end. Eric Brown made first team offense at center. And then Cam Johnson and Nick Teist both made offensive line first team as well. First team defensive Bulldogs, Ashad Hall, defensive lineman, first team, and Jaden Broughton both made first team defensive line. Aaron Smith made first team defense at linebacker. He's a graduate student. Gerard Washington made first team all conference at defensive back, and Kyle Gallegos made first team as the kicker. Second team guys, they had Trey Franklin made second team offensive line and second team defense. John Hannibal, second team defensive line. Uh, Jaden Jones, second team defense linebacker. Diego Addison made second team defense at defensive back, and Dyson Roberts made second team all conference as the punter. So, like I said, they had a very, very solid group of guys made this list. Uh, and so they pretty much dominated the all conference list. They dominated the conference, undefeated. Ran through everybody, and found themselves in Atlanta. Looking at how they stacked up in the MEAC, they were the number 2 team in scoring offense. They scored 35 and a half points per game, which tied them with North Carolina Central. So they basically tied for first. Their defense allowed 20.9 points per game, which was second. This team had a huge turnaround from last season. Last season, offensively, they were very up and down. By mid-season, they went to a lot of younger guys and they kind of took off. But this season, the offense was very explosive. 426.5 yards per game. Scored 49 touchdowns as an offense. Averaged 6.5 yards per play. So very, very explosive offense. Sticking with the offensive side of the ball, their passing attack really was what made this team go. They led the league in passing, averaging 272 yards per game with 25 touchdowns and only 8 interceptions on the season. Threw for 3,001 yards, completed 65% of their passes. And like I said, they had some guys who were all conference guys in the receiving core. Looking at guys like Caden High and Justin Smith Brown, um, they both caught almost 50 passes. Brown had 49. Smith Brown had 49 catches for 725 yards and 4 touchdowns. Um, Also, Hyde had 58 catches for 892 yards and 7 touchdowns. Enige Carter had 38 catches for 592 yards and 6 touchdowns. Keyshawn Tony had 26 catches for 287 yards and 3 touchdowns. So they had a solid group of guys to throw the ball to, and they really did a really good job of spreading the ball around. As an Eric Phoenix this season, he was 170 of 261, 2,460 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. He did get he did get banged up late in the season. So we'll see, how he's doing. I mean, they've obviously had a good while to rest up, so he should be ready to go. He's a guy who definitely got this offense going, and I also had 300. I also had 225 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns. So definitely a weapon there. When you look at their rushing attack, they finished third. I believe they finished third in the league in rushing at 153 yards per game. They had 24 touchdowns and they averaged 4.2 yards per carry. They were able to kind of get it done with a couple guys running the ball. KZ Adams had 95 carries for 497 yards and 5 touchdowns. He averaged 5.2 yards per carry with a long of 46. And DeAndre Duhart had 111 carries for 443 yards and 7 touchdowns. He averaged 4 yards per carry with a long of 30. So their longest run on the season was 86 yards by Tyler Smith. Other than that, their next longest run was 52 yards by Ryan Stubblefield. I mean, excuse me, by Simmons. And other than that, most of their next couple longest runs were in the 40s. But the longest pass on the season was 75 yards. And so they are an offense that can be explosive, and they have been really pretty balanced offensively. When you look at the offensive line, they give up 20 sacks on the season. They convert uh, 42% on third downs, which is second in the conference. And then on fourth down, they convert 66%, which is second in the conference. They attempted 15 third downs, which is in the middle of the pack in the conference. It's kind of tough to look at numbers in a 16 conference. Sometimes numbers might be ranked a little bit lower in a bigger conference, or they might be a little bit higher in a bigger conference. But it's kind of tough to kind of gauge at times. But they were a pretty solid fourth down team. When you look at them in the red zone, they converted 83% in the red zone, 39 of 47, which led the conference. They scored 22 touchdowns on the ground in the red zone, 10 passing touchdowns, and it was 7 of 9 on field goals in the red zone. They did turn it over 5 times, 3 turnovers on downs, an interception, and a fumble. They, like I said, they're a team who are pretty solid. They had 30 minutes and 45-second time of possession, so they pretty much were even with most teams in that aspect. Um, when you kind of look at what they did in terms of turnovers, because that's huge in a game like this. Um, they, like I said, they had 8 interceptions on the season, and they lost 9 fumbles, so they had 17 turnovers on the season. Defensively, they had 10 fumble recoveries, and they intercepted 14 passes. So they had a +7 turnover ratio, which is very good, which means they take care of the ball really well and they take it away extremely well. So that definitely is a plus for them coming into a game like this against a defense in Jackson State that will turn you over. They don't turn it over a lot. That's something that they can kind of look forward to kind of keeping on. If they keep that on schedule, they'll be in good shape. Defensively, the Bulldogs average 20.9 points per game, which is second in the conference. They give up 295 yards per game, which leads the league. They allow 4.9 yards per play, and they've given up 29 touchdowns. Their rushing defense leads the conference at 115.5 yards per game. They've given up 11 touchdowns on the ground and 3.5 yards per carry. that run defense will be tested highly in this game. They've been, like I said, they've been pretty solid in that aspect. Um, Kind of taking a look at what what their opponents were able to do on the ground. Their highest rushing total allowed was 196 yards on 196 yards on the ground. That was against Delaware State in a game that was really out of hand early. Um, but that Delaware State was able to move the ball on the ground some for them. But most other than that, not really a lot on the ground in terms of yardage. They did give up 211 in that final game of Norfolk. So again, that's another blowout. But they were able to be hit on the ground a little bit. With Jackson State, you're definitely gonna try to establish their running game because that's what you do. You run the ball. You don't deviate away from that. Um, and that's where you stand. Looking at where the Bulldogs are against the pass, they are fourth in the conference against the pass, 179 yards per game. They have allowed 18 touchdowns. They do have 14 interceptions. Opponents complete 52% of their passes. And defensively, they're very good with generating pressure. They registered 36 sacks. Again, like I say, 14 interceptions. They recovered 10 fumbles. They forced 11, so they pretty much recovered almost every fumble that they forced, and so that gives them a really solid defense. They lead the league, allowing only 15 first downs per game, and their second and third down defense at 31.6%. And fourth down, the opponents are actually pretty solid there at 66%, which is last in the conference. But the opponents also have only attempted 15 first downs, which is the fewest in the 15 fourth downs, which is the fewest in the conference. Um, their defense in the red zone is they allow opponents have converted 78% in the red zone, which is third in the league, 22 or 28. They've given up 18 touchdowns, 8 rushing, and 10 passing. Opponents are 4 of 7 on field goals, and they have forced 3 turnovers, one fumble, 2 interceptions in the red zone. So they can be, if you can get inside the 20 on them, there is a chance for success. Like I said, being able to move the ball consistently on this defense is something that hasn't really been done a lot. But there's an opportunity to push a team like that when you're not really tested. They haven't been pushed in a game since really North Carolina Central. So, if you can kind of get them on their heels, you can have an opportunity in this game. Their kicking game is pretty solid. They average 39.3 yards per kickoff net with 20 touchbacks. They are third in the league in field goals, 9 of 14 on the season. They are second in the league in punting with a net average of 37.2. They only allow 1.9 yards per punt return, and they average 41.4 yards per punt, which is also second in the conference. And they actually are not that great, quote unquote, on extra points. 41 or 48, which is fifth in the league. That's 85%. Um, the return game hasn't been great. They only allow 4.2. They only average 4.2 yards per punt return, which is last in the league, and they're fifth in the league, and kickoff returns at 16.9. So that hidden yardage that is always there. They don't really get a lot of that. Most of their things come from offense. When you look at individually, some of their defensive leaders individually, they're led in tackles by Aaron Smith. He has 78 tackles, by far the most on the team. Tackles for loss. Hall has 14. Broughton has 13 and a half. And so that's a 1-2 punch on the defensive line. Both of those guys, you're gonna have to know where they are at all times. They both very solid there. Hall leads the team with 11 sacks. Broughton is right behind him at 8.5. Barker has 4 sacks as well. Interceptions. Addison leads the team with 3 interceptions on the season. Like I said, the special teams unit, the return game hasn't been great. The longest punt return on the season is 26 yards. The longest kickoff return on the season is 42. So not a lot there. When you look at the kicking game, like I said, they're 9 of 14 on field goals. The long on the season is 42. So not a lot of range on those field goals. Like I said, they are 3 of 5 from 40 to 49 yards, but not a lot of range there. So you really don't not going to expect them to kick a lot of long field goals, and field goals are not going to win this game. Now, you know, if you got a really good kicker like Jackson State do, that's going to be an advantage in this game. But I don't really think field goals are going to win this game. They're going to be important because anytime you can score points, you need to take the points. But I don't think you're going to be able to win this game kicking more field goals than you score touchdowns. So for South Carolina State, they have had one kick blocked, so they haven't blocked a kick, but they have had one block this season. I don't expect them to do a lot of kicking. They do their damage on field goals from 20 to 39 yards. Inside of that, they're definitely going for it, and outside of that, they're probably going for it too. They have had one punt block, and they blocked two punts this season, so that's something to kind of take into account as well. Um, but like I said, this is a very solid team. Like I said, this team is um, not where they were last season. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle being in a high pressure game like this. Of course, they had the game against North Carolina Central, which was a very high pressure game, but this is a different beast. Um, they've been off for a bit. Can they? Are they going to be able to bounce back? We talk all the time about being off or playing before this game, and it can be an advantage both ways. Of course, you want to have that time off to get healthy, but it's also sometimes good to, if you got the momentum, to keep it going. You play a good game, you want to go ahead and play another good game, and not have to worry about trying to get yourself going again. But they should be healthy from that time off. I think that could be an edge for them. I think not being so banged up could be a good edge for them. But they're going to be tested by Jackson State. Jackson State is not going to be an easy task for them. Um, when you look at what the Tigers have done this season, they come in here with 11 guys on the All SWAC list. Um, it definitely could have been, more. Had some guys who really should have made this list that didn't. They also had the Offensive Player of the Year and Irv Mulligan, who I'm extremely high on. If you go back and watch any of my old videos, I've always been really high on Irv Mulligan. I think he's a great back. He's hard as hell to get on the ground. Anytime I watch him run, it takes more than one guy to get him on the ground. Arm tackle's not going to get him on the ground. Two guys sometimes is not going to get him on the ground. I watched him Saturday, man, get stopped at like the 3 and spun his way into the end zone. So if you're South Carolina State, you definitely need to get hands on him, or else he's gonna get loose. But like I said, they had the Offensive Player of the Year. Of course, they had a Coach of the Year in T.C. Taylor. They had a Freshman of the Year in Travis Terrell, a guy who is an all-purpose monster. He can return kicks. He can run the ball. He's good. If he gets the ball in his hands, that's a touchdown waiting to happen. If you're South Carolina State, you don't want to kick to this guy. Not necessarily because he's gonna score, but he's gonna give them a good starting field position. So you definitely want to, if you're South Carolina State, you want to be careful there. Some of the other guys who made the all conference is DeAndre Thomas Blue on the offensive line, Joshua Nobles on defense, Kevin Wiggins, like I said, Terrell, Jacoby and Morgan at quarterback. Um, Evan Henry and Kirk Ford on the offensive line, uh, Gerardo Beza at kicker, Matt Knoll. Like this team, they had a couple of hiccups early, but this team could have easily, they could have easily come into this game, 11-1, 10-12-0. You know what I'm saying? So they weren't outmatched necessarily against ULM. They just came up short in the second half in that game. They lost 30-14, but this was a tight game through 2.5, 3 quarters. And of course, after that, they followed it up with a 58-7 victory over Lane. They beat Southern the first time 33-15 in a game they led like 30-0 before Southern, 23-0 before Southern got on the board. Grambling beat them 41-20, but they turned the ball over 5 times in that game. Grambling was able to capitalize on that. and then from that point on, they have not lost. They are on a 9-game winning streak. That's 8 regular season conference wins and a SWAC championship win. They started their winning streak off with a 43-14 victory over Texas Southern. They beat Alabama A&M 45-38. They beat FAMU 35-21. They beat Bethune-Cookman 37-17. They beat Pine Bluff 41-3. They beat Valley 51-14. They beat Alabama State 16-10. They beat Alcorn 48-10. Then they beat Southern on Saturday 41-13. So as you can see, they've been winning every game in this winning streak. They won by double digits, except for the Alabama A&M game, which and the Alabama State game. Both of those games they won by touchdown. But other than that, every game they won was by at least 15 points. So they've been blowing teams away in that aspect. When you look at what this team has done in the conference in terms of the offense and defense. Starting with the offense, they led the conference in scoring offense at 37 points per game. That's 7 more points than the second place team. Like I said, if you look at their totals over the season, a lot of 40-point games, a lot of 50-point games, high numbers there. Second in total offense at 404 yards per game. They average 6.5 yards per play, which led the conference. So they definitely are an explosive offense. They had 56 touchdowns, which also led the league. They led the league by 11 in total touchdowns. Um, just a really solid offense. Defense, looking at their rushing offense, they led the conference at 218 yards per game. If there is if there's an edge that I do give them in this game, is their running game. I think they run the ball extremely well. I've said it all season, and I'll say it one more time for the final week. If they run for 150 yards, they win this game. They've only lost one game when they ran for 150 yards, and that was the game against Grambling, which, like I said, they had a ton of turnovers in that game. When you look at this team in their losses, which, like I said, they had 2 losses. They ran for 159 against Grambling, so they still had over 150 yards, which I think is the threshold. They only ran for less than 150 yards 3 times, and one of those was against Bama State, who has the best defense in the conference. The other one was against ULM, which is a FBS team, and then 140 yards against Alabama A&M, which was a game that they won. Kind of had to hold on to win it, but they still were able to win the bulk of their game. So under 150 yards, they're 2-1. Over 150 yards, they've also lost one game. So if they run the ball for 150, I think they're in great shape. The last few weeks, just looking, starting at the FAMU game, because that was after that 140 against Alabama A&M, they ran for 245, 349, 247, 368, 74 against Bama State, 283 against Alcorn, and then 275 on Saturday. So they have been grinding the yards out on the ground. And I think that's kind of what they're gonna be. I think early in the season we kind of said it. They need, they're gonna be a team to line up and run at you, and that's what they're gonna do. And they don't shy away from that. And when you have the best back in the conference, you're gonna be able to do that. And then when you have a nice change of pace guy in Travis Terrell, that also helps. Um, Both of those guys average over 6 yards per carry. Mulligan is over 1,100 yards. Terrell is at 459. Mulligan 11 touchdowns. Terrell 4. Morgan has 6 touchdowns on the season, 297 yards as well, averages 3.4 yards per carry. His health is important in this game. I do think, Zy McDonald had a huge game off the bench Saturday. I think if he's called into service, he can be a factor with his legs. Um, but I think that maybe takes a little bit off the passing game. Not to say that he can't throw, because I think he's a solid quarterback all around. But he doesn't have a lot of reps this season. So if he has to play, I think the element of surprise it may be there still. But Morgan definitely has to be in command of the offense if he's able to go. They did have some shaky moments with him out there. Now, I don't even think if he played the whole game that they would have been in any real trouble Saturday. But offense was kind of helter skelter for a little while. But he is the guy who has been the starter of the bulk of the season. He has 148 completions, 235 attempts, 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, 2,003 yards. Completed 62% of his passes with a long of 66 on the season. Um, the receiving core has been, they've been really banged up, but they do still have playmakers there for Tillian. Has 35 catches, 584 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Spencer, 32 catches, 537 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Dupree, 18 for 325 and 5 touchdowns. Henderson has 14 for 238 and a touchdown. Landy, 16 for 222 and 3 touchdowns. And Gardner, 10 for 122 and a touchdown. So they some of the guys they were counting on early in the season, they got banged up, but they're still a very solid offense through the air. Not great numerically because they run the ball so well. But what they do is when you commit to stopping the run, they can hit you over the top with big plays. That, like I said, as a team, they complete 60% of their passes. They average 8.4 yards per attempt. They have 25 touchdowns, which leads the conference. For a team that only throws the ball for 185 yards per game, like I said, they have 25 touchdowns, which leads the conference. And they've thrown 9 interceptions, so they don't really turn the ball over a ton. But they have had some key turnovers there at times, and the bulk of their turnovers came against Grambling, and they haven't really had that issue too much in recent weeks. The offensive line has allowed 20 sacks. That's going to be a tough task against the South Carolina State defense that gets after the quarterback. Offensively, they're second in the conference in third downs at 40%. They second in the league in first downs per game at 20.3, and fourth down offense they're 75%, 15 or 20. When you look at their red zone offense, they lead the league at 98% excuse me, 93% in the red zone. So very efficient in the red zone. They get inside the 20, they're scoring, and they have 33 touchdowns. 33 of their 43 scores are in touchdowns. So 22 rushing touchdowns, 11 passing, 15 of 15 on field goals. They're 48 or 49 in the red zone. They've only had one trip in the red zone that they did not score, and that was an interception that they threw. So that it gets no more efficient than that in the red zone. Like I said, they have 33 touchdowns in the red zone and 15 field goals. Very, very good in the red zone. They get inside the 20 in this game, they will score. I think South Carolina State's red zone defense is not great. They're not bad, but they're not great. So that's a good advantage for Jackson State. If they can move the ball and get inside the 20, they're gonna score. And so, that's a good advantage for them. When you look at what this team does defensively, defense is if it wasn't for Bama State, Jackson State would have the best defense in the conference, hands down. They only allow 17 points per game as a defense. Total defense, they're second at 280 yards per game. They give up 27 touchdowns, which is the second fewest. They allow 4.6 yards per play, which is the second fewest. The rushing defense is second in the league as well. They only allow 116 yards per game. South Carolina State runs the ball kind of by committee. They're pretty solid there, like I said earlier, like 153 yards per game. This defense should be pretty solid against the run. They don't, like I said, they don't really give up a lot there, and that's something that's gonna, really help them in this game. When you look at what they've given up on the ground this season, they gave up 204 to ULM, 75 to Lane, 29 to Southern, 104 to Grambling, 108 to Texas Southern. Alabama and them hit them for 210. FAMU 63, Bethune 112. And then after that, not much. They did give up 184 to Bama State, 176 to Alcorn, and then 133 against Southern on Saturday. But not a lot of yardage there. They've been stymieing a lot of teams, uh, and so they've been really, really tough there. Through the air, their defense they only allowed 3.5 yards per carry as well. They give up 13 touchdowns, which is the second fewest as well on the ground. Their pass defense is third in the league, 163 yards per game. They've allowed 14 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Opponents only complete 52% of their passes. Again, Bama State defense ahead of them, and Southern's pass defense was tops in the league. So if it wasn't for them two defenses, they would be tops. They're going to be tested by that South Carolina State passing game. If they can get pressure, which this defense has 34 sacks. Um, this is like I said, this is a game that kind of both teams kind of do similar things. I think Jack State running game is a big difference in this game, and like I said, they have when you look at what this team has done in the turnover margin, like I said, South Carolina State is +7. Jackson State, they have 9 interceptions thrown, and they've lost 9 fumbles, so they have 18 giveaways. Defensively, they have 8 fumble recoveries and 13 interceptions, which give them 21 takeaways, so they're +3. Both teams really solid in turnover margin. Neither team really turns it over a ton. Like I said, the bulk of their turnovers came against Grambling, so not a lot there for them any other time. So they have been pretty careful with the ball. They have those untimely turnovers from time to time, but not enough to really hurt them in any other game. And I think whoever takes care of the ball the most in this game is going to be the team that comes out on top. Reed Pulliam leads Jackson State with 62 tackles. Joshua Nobles has 56. Jeremiah Williams, who should have been an all-conference guy, he has 55 tackles on the season. Robert McDaniel has 53. Ashton Taylor is another guy who's been really solid. He has 48 tackles. True Thompson, 44. Another guy who had a great chance of making all-conference, didn't make it. Nobles leads the defense with 12 tackles for loss. Thompson, 11. McDaniel, 10. Webb, 9. Uh, Nobles leads the defense with 10 sacks, and McDaniel and Wiggins leads the defense each with 3 interceptions. Now, where I think the biggest difference in this game is special teams. Jackson State, they're very solid in all aspects of special teams. Matt Knoll, he averages 42.4 yards per punt. He has 15 punts inside the 20 and eight 50-plus yard punts. They have had 2 punts blocked on the season, but they have also blocked 2 punts. Beza is 22 or 28 on field goals with a long of 48. Um, they have not had any field goals blocked, and they have not blocked any. But Basil's 9 of 9, 9 of 9 from 20 to 29 yards. He's 8 of 9 from 30 to 39 yards, and 5 of 8 from 40 plus. Um, Definitely a weapon there. The biggest difference to me in this game, and this is going to be the difference that I think can change this game, and that's the return game. Terrell averages 16 yards per punt return with a long of 44, and he averages 30.6 yards per kickoff return with 2 touchdowns, long of 96. So if you're South Carolina State, you got to weigh your options. You gotta figure, do I want to kick to this guy and give up the yardage or possible score, or do I want to try to kick it out of bounds or try to find a way to pin them? You're gonna have to be really careful with that, because if Jackson State gets that extra yardage and they start at the 35 or the 40 instead of the 25, that's gonna be a big difference in this game, because I think if Jackson State can establish the run and really lean on South Carolina State with that offensive line that they have, and that running game that they have, if they can do that, I think they give JSU a big edge in this game. If they get behind the chains and they have to throw the ball, if they have to throw it, they are capable, but that's not really what they want to do. They don't want to be a team to come out and just throw. They want to be able to run first and then throw the ball. If they can do that and stick with their game plan that they've been doing, I think Jackson State is going to be in a good spot. Like I said, the health of their offense, especially their quarterback, is going to be key in this game. I think this is going to be a very tight game. I think this is going to be a fourth quarter game. I don't think either team is going to, give up easily. I think unless somebody builds an early lead, then I think this is going to be a nip and tuck game. I do think both teams kind of have something that they do really well on offense. South Carolina State, they run the ball well, but they throw it. That's kind of what they do. Like I said, they have multiple guys that can lead the team in receiving in any game. So Jackson State secondary is going to have to be aware of those guys. The defense is going to have to try to get pressure on Phoenix, but you can't let him get loose because he can get some yardage with his legs. Jackson State can run the ball. South Carolina State run defense is they're solid, but they're going to be tested. They have to make Jackson State throw the ball more than they can run it, but that hasn't been done by a lot of people this season. I say all that to say I think Jackson State wins this game. I think they seal the deal. I think they win this game. I'm going to say 27-23. I think they win this game with a late fourth quarter score. Not necessarily a score at the end of the game, but a game maybe they pull away late in the fourth or something like that. But I think this is going to be a tight nip and tuck game, and it should be a great game. And this is the kind of game you want from the top two teams in HBCU football. Um, the winner is the champ, and they deserve it. Of course, you can throw Tennessee State in the mix, but these two teams are the top two teams, all the two conferences that are eligible for Celebration Bowl, and you can't ask for much more in this matchup than that. And I do think it's going to be a really good game. So, with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the swag. See what I'm signing out, and I will catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.